This is a new day. This is a new day full of sound and light and expectation. This day has been waiting for you. This day has been waiting especially for you, to embrace you, to guide you. This day has been waiting with open arms just for you. This is the day we have been given, and what a glorious day it is, isn't it? Let's not waste it. Come now and let us worship together. Please rise. Embody your spirit for our first hymn, hymn 112 in the gray hymnal. Do you hear?
The sky, through the land, do you hear, in the heights, on the plain, in the vale, on the main, in the sun, in the rain, do you hear, through the roar, through the rush, through the throng, through the crush, do you hear in the hush of your soul, hear the cry, fear won't still, hear the heart's call to will, hear a sigh, startling thrill in your soul, the place where you stand to the outermost strand. Do you hear, oh my friend? Do you hear all the dreams, all the dares, all the sighs, all the prayers? They are yours, mine and theirs. Do you hear?
It's Riss Rayleigh, and I welcome you to this church, known as UUYO. We are so glad you're here, and you are invited to join us for coffee after service. We have a few announcements. All are welcome to join Bob Siebold for a conversation on Ukraine, as well as Saudi Arabia and Iran, after service in Schweitzer Lounge, downstairs, as well as on Zoom. Linda Scharf, a certified mindfulness teacher, will be offering meditation tonight on Zoom at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. All are welcome to join that. This Saturday, April 1st, the Youngstown Zen Center will be hosting time for walking and seated meditation, along with conversation with Roshi Dyken Nelson. This will happen 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. Feel free to chat with Reverend Joseph after service if you're interested.
New York Times headline of last August. Older generations are reclaiming rites of passage. There is no rite of passage beyond marriage, before death, and that's what we are. As we are past the biblical lifespan of 70 or 70, which is my age, we reflect on this month's theme of vulnerability, which Lindsay Sinkovich introduced on March 5th with an inspiring reading by David White, which begins, "Vulnerability is not a choice, a passing indisposition, but the underlying, ever-present, and abiding undercurrent of our natural state. In other words, the human condition. As we pass through the years, aging as we go, we learn from experiences, positive and negative, and we hope to pass from aging to saging, as a recent book goes. As the sage of our youth, Dr. Seuss put it, you are only old once. This is a book for obsolete children. And now I pass the microphone to the face of vulnerability, Louisa Berger.
Good morning. I am Louisa Berger, and at 78, I have come to understand that vulnerability is a double-edged sword. I realize that as senior citizens, we often think of vulnerability in terms of health and safety. These are realistic concerns, to be sure, but as I was reflecting on what to say this morning, I realized how much being vulnerable has impacted my relationship with this church community from the very beginning. When we first came to UUYO, I found it intimidating and unwelcoming. I now realize that I was my own worst enemy and afraid of being judged as shy and socially inept. I did not do much to engage. Many years later, after I retired, I was more willing to get involved at church and found something I didn't recognize I needed: a community. By making myself vulnerable to others here at UUYO, my life has been enriched in so many ways. I have learned a great deal about the workings of the church, have gotten involved in social justice issues that are meaningful, important, and that have a real impact on us as a church and the communities in which we live. And I have made good friends. In the past few weeks, our family has experienced a number of health issues, including my breaking my fall with my face 3 weeks ago. I thought a lot about physical vulnerability. The support we have received from our UUYO family has been overwhelming, much appreciated, and I realize that being vulnerable isn't so bad when a whole church community has your back. I believe that members and friends have internalized the message of the covenant we share every week. UUYO is a safe place to be vulnerable.
Now, Kathy Caget.
I'm sitting there saying to Sue, "You're next," and she said, "No, you're next." I really appreciate what you said, Louisa, about when you join a place and you feel vulnerable, like, will I fit in or whatever. And I think vulnerability to me, it's not a weakness, it's a strength. It gives us a signal that we need to learn to embrace and to figure out, okay, how am I going to deal with this? I've done that with the past 2 storms that we've had, sitting on the couch watching TV and doing bills at 9 o'clock at night, and a week or 2 ago, and all of a sudden it went pitch black. I couldn't see my hand in front of me. I haven't had that happen in years. So I sat there thinking, okay, do not get up, because the chances of falling when things have gone black all of a sudden, to get up, the chances of falling are high. So I sat there and I thought, oh, wait a minute. My old buddy and I have a flashlight. It's like a lantern by one place in each room of the house. And I've done that for years because of a storm 20 years ago. So I reached down, grabbed a light, and there was light. Pulled that up, the whole room just lit up. I could make my way safely to the door to check the neighborhood, which was, I've never seen it pitch black. I mean, it was a very eerie feeling for about a half hour. Fortunately, it came back on, the electricity. But at that moment, talk about vulnerability. But when we're staring into the darkness, then the switch goes on. Okay, how do I help myself? And pre-planning helps, but and going into a new place to become a member can be like an area of darkness. But when you come here, there are so many rays of light going in so many different directions of learning, of volunteering, Zoom has just been a wonderful thing. And so that's really kept a lot of us in touch when we couldn't make it down here physically. So, welcome aboard, hug that vulnerability, and we will march on.
Hello, I'm Sue Anzalotti, and my husband, Jim Ray, is sitting down there in the red shirt. We are very aware of the vulnerability caused by age. I'm 85, and he's almost 93. We had better not be climbing ladders. Sometimes we have a burned-out light or a smoke detector needing to be checked. We have learned to just wait until someone younger comes by, and we can show them our list of duties for younger people. If the person we find happens to be one of our children, they're very happy and relieved to know that we are aware that we're vulnerable. To quote David White, the only choice we have as we mature is how we inhabit our vulnerability. May the light we now kindle inspire us all to use our powers to heal and not to harm, to help and not to hinder, to bless and not to curse, to serve you, Spirit of freedom.
Can you move them away? Thanks. No, just move this. Talk about mics, they're vulnerable too. Thank you.
I'm going to use this one. So some of you may know that I suffered a pretty big loss this week, and it's making me feel kind of vulnerable, so I'm going to start off my story with a joke. Because jokes cheer everybody up, especially when they're funny, and this one's going to be really funny. So, what do you get when a tornado hits a cheese factory? A lot of debris. Okay. See, it was funny, wasn't it? So our story today is called Dream. It's a tale of wonder, wisdom, and wishes, and it's by Susan V. Bosack. And this is a winner of 11 awards, and I will leave it down in the meeting hall during coffee hour so that you can have a look at it. This is, I also need to tell you that this book, the illustrations are made up of over 15 internationally acclaimed artists. So I'm going to try to make sure you get to see the pictures. Once, long ago, when all the stars were born, I was a baby. My favorite color was yellow, the color of the sun that peeked in my window in the morning. When you're a baby, you emerge from a cozy little world to reach out in wonder. You smile and gurgle and fuss and cry and get fed and need changing and sleep and dream. When my legs began to take me places, my favorite colors were bright, like rip-roaring red. There's a whole world to explore, watching bubbles burst in your bath, tasting honey on toast, smelling every single flower in the garden, listening to laughter and thunder, touching your mother's face and your very own toes. As I get bigger, my favorite colors were those of a rainbow, like the violet arc across the sky, so real. I could almost reach up and touch it. There's a whole world to imagine. Castles in your backyard, pumpkins transformed into gilded carriages, fairy friends who play with you all day, monsters that crouch in dark corners at night, wishes you make on stars. When I became a teenager, I liked blue. Everyone likes blue. There's a whole world to figure out. You think about finally growing up, who you are, what's important, where you're going, why you're going there, when the right time is, how it all fits together, and you think about having a good time along the way. Then I was a grown-up, young and strong. My favorite colors were simple black and white. It was easy to tell yes from no. There's a whole world to conquer, and you know exactly what you want, to make your own way, to be okay, to belong, to know things, to be you and make a mark on the world. Great men and great women, some famous, most not. Great ideas, the impossible made possible. Great hopes and joys, fears and sorrows, and all the living in between. But as the days became years that spun by, my simple black and white world turned gray, the colors of a dismal day. You hear so many voices. No way, they say, you're dreaming. Or to yourself you say, things weren't supposed to be this way. You get tired, or maybe confused or scared. Maybe there's just too much, too big, too long, too hard. All you want to do is hide your head under the covers of your bed. It was gray, gray, gray. I didn't like the gray. Then something happened. It will always happen if you're looking. It might be a smile, a wink, a nod from someone you don't know. It might be a hug from someone who loves you. It might be a word or an idea carried on the wind from others. Or it might be a little nudge from deep inside you. Get up! And then you understand the secret to dreaming a dream, that is. I was older and strong once again. My favorite color was green, the color of go and the color of grow. I understood the world at its best is green. Dreams grow like seeds. They need to take root, then stretch toward the sun. They grow slowly. They must be tended to, and sometimes a gray day gives them just the rain they need. There's something else, too. I understood that to grow a dream, you need more than the one I was. You need the believe of childhood, the do of youth, and the think of experience. You need all three. There's the wisdom to fill a tooth. Simple and not so simple all at once. Believe, do, think. Now I am very, very old. My favorite color? Yellow. The color of the billion stars that sparkle in the night sky. I have dreamed a lifetime of dreams. I reached many of them, not all, but many. Many also changed along the way. What I have most are fine memories. When you're as old as I am, you still dream dreams, but they're different. Mostly they're wishes for those who follow. I look up, up, up into those billion sparkling stars. What dreams do you find? Look, little dreams, big dreams, each a hope, looking for a life to make it real, a life like yours. Dream bigger. With everything around you, with everything before and after you, with everything that is you, dream a dream, your very own dream. The end. Time to go to class.
And please join me in reading the covenant, which is found inside your order of service. Give you a second to find it so we're all on the same page, so we can say it with some gusto. Love is the spirit of this church, and service its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
Our church is completely supported by pledge income from members and friends like you. If you wish to make an offering to us, please designate on your check or envelope that it is for UUYO. Our giveaway the plate recipient for March is Operation Pollination. Operation Pollination's purpose is to restore a vibrant pollinator corridor from Mexico to Canada to the benefit of all wildlife. Together, we can change the landscaping paradigm away from the ecological wastelands that dominate our yards and corporate landscapes. With education, we can recreate our outdoor spaces to be the vibrant, healthy spaces that nature intended. We will now receive the offering that supports the life of Youngstown, the Mahoning Valley, and our wider world.
It's an amazing grace to be here with all of you. Let's appreciate that for a moment or two of silence.
My basic form of spirituality is faith in the unknown. I believe that everything that comes into my life is for me to work with spiritually. My spirituality is an inheritance from my father. He has been a seeker all of his life, but could never find peace. He could never see that he is everything that happens to him. His whole world seems to be a struggle against the enemy, both internal and external. I find that my own struggles are an integral part of my spiritual path, and that my awakening is very, very gradual. Just as the Buddhist who said to the hot dog vendor, "Make me one with everything." The good news is that you are one with everything. Just as you can't fall outside of God's loving embrace, you cannot fall outside of the kingdom of God, which is truly within you. Whether you are in a state of bliss or in the profoundest hell, you are not an anathema. All your paths are superintended. You have always been on the path. You can't fall off of it. Everything is conspiring to lead you home to experience your true nature. Everything you are doing now, including all the mess-ups and screw-ups and mistakes, are exactly the right thing for you to learn what you need to know to move along your path. All the causes and conditions of your unique life have brought you to this moment. And given your particular set of causes and conditions, you have always done your best. I want results instead of process. What a trap. As I create and listen, I will be led. As I create and listen, I will be led. As I create and listen, I will be led. The process takes care of itself. Just listen. As I create and listen, I will be led. If you just surrender your life to the teaching life brings you, then you no longer have to worry what the future will bring. You will bring forth the future out of your surrender. Just drink tea and the teaching will come to you. You do not have to chase it. It is chasing you.
when I told someone I was going to preach on aging, they said, "No one will listen to you." They said, "You're not old enough." I'm learning that's pretty relative. I'm 37, and as my older brother reminds me, now you're on the wrong side of 30. I respond, "No, I'm on the right side." And he says, "No, trust me, it's the wrong side." Our theme this month is vulnerability. And I didn't plan on talking about aging, but I thought, how can we get away from vulnerability last Sunday of the month and not talk about it? So let's talk about it. The more I explore the theme of vulnerability with you, the more clearly I see that vulnerability is built into every moment of our life, as David White points out. We don't need to do anything special to be vulnerable. We don't need to go too far away or make a special exception to realize this truth of vulnerability. It's here. And it's always here, whether we acknowledge it or not. I was reminded of something which many of you know quite intimately, especially those who are parents or who have taken care of young babies and children, that when we're born, we don't have the muscle capacity to even lift our heads. We come into this world, it's like with a head like a loose marble, just rolling, completely, with gravity. Someone sets me up over here, all right, that's my head. We're just, we're a species that's born without the ability to feed ourselves. We're born without the ability to clean ourselves. We're born without the ability to clothe ourselves and put a nice stole on us. We're born into a world with such a profound state of vulnerability that it makes most of us as adults shudder to think about returning to some semblance of that place. But the truth is, we've already experienced that, even if we don't remember it. And maybe not remembering it is part of the genius of biology, We grow older thinking we can make it in this world on our own, completely forgetting that from day one, we were radically dependent on just putting our heads straight. Maybe there's a genius to forgetting that very basic fact, and we spend our life, most of us, I think, doing a combination of chafing against and also coming to terms with that very basic reality. From day one, we are completely dependent. And most of us fail to realize, myself included, that this is true every day going forward, too. I think, and I'm just speaking for myself, I've lived with the illusion that there are really two periods of extreme vulnerability. This is an illusion, but I've lived it. When you're born and the end of life, right? And maybe for some of us, physical or mental conditions that impact us earlier. And the middle, for some of us, is a time of independence, of our making our way in the world. Anyone else thought something kind of like this without really thinking about it too much? But I'm coming around to see how both are equally true, and I think this is very important. We are independent. We are independent, even at the most dependent. And we are completely dependent even at the pinnacle of our independence. Which is why I think sometimes public speaking is so frightening for people. Because when you're up here, even when you're listening, we actually can't help but feel both realities, right? One person who seems somewhat independent, dressed themselves, got up here, with their own bozo thoughts, right? Completely dependent on the attention and response of others. And this is true every moment. But certain experiences give us that heightened experience that allow us to feel it. And the feeling is usually a combination of fear and discomfort, even if it's low level. It kind of opens up the illusion that I'm just myself up here with my own thoughts, and the world is somewhere vaguely out there. Nope. We're all here, together. Again, as I speak, it's amazing how we can sit here aging and we don't even feel it necessarily. I know some of us might feel a pain in our body that kind of reminds us, like, oh, yeah, my back, okay. But for some of us, we actually forget about it. You're aging right now. And then, it's funny, we don't feel it. And then have you had the experience, you see someone you haven't seen for a while, and they see what you've missed? Oh my God, you've aged. I remember visiting my mother out west, and the first thing she said to me, giving me a hug, she said, "Oh my goodness, you have white hair coming through." Yes, I'm aging. I hear that's what happens sometimes. I've always been curious about what is real. Even if I don't know what it is, I'm curious about it. But sometimes I think we hear or experience certain things that we feel, yeah, you know what, that points to something that could be true. And I remember hearing something like that from Suzuki Roshi. He said this: "Life is like stepping onto a boat which is about to sail out to sea and sink." I remember being kind of shocked when I heard that, right? But then it kind of settled a little bit. And then it's like, you know what? That doesn't seem to be such an exaggeration. That's not just a provocative statement, right? It's pointing to something fundamental about our experience of life. And for some of us, that sinking is quite gradual. And for some of us, it feels dramatic. For some of us, it's just, a little water getting into the boat, minute by minute by minute. And for some of us, that journey happens quite suddenly, dramatically. But it's happening. Don't worry. I made a promise to myself. This sermon on aging would not be depressing. It's a promise, and I plan to keep it. So there are some other sides to this that I want to explore with you and see what you all think. When Daikin came for our meditation retreat, I learned a lot about someone I didn't know anyone about, Roshi Sandra Jishu Holmes, who shared what Riz read just a few minutes ago. She passed away quite suddenly at the age of 57, and this past Monday was the 25th anniversary of her passing. And she is a very important figure in religion in America, and specifically American Buddhism, really reviving and bringing to attention the female teachers throughout the centuries who had long been forgotten. And she inspired and lifted up many important and powerful Buddhist teachers who are practicing today, including many women. Anyway, there's this great story I heard about her that really opened my heart, and I wanted to share it with you. So in addition to traditional teaching, Roshi Holmes worked to create a child care center for working families in Newark, New Jersey, for those who couldn't afford child care. And so she was very busy with administration. And one of the people working under her oversaw the managing of the weekly newsletter. Some of us are more familiar with weekly newsletters. And this was just as arduous and just as involved, and this was before the internet, so they had to print out every single copy of the newsletter. And so the person under Jishu gave instructions to the office assistant, very specific instructions of a picture that was going to go right on the cover, and then on the second page, a reverse of the same picture. Got it? Got it? Okay, good. Got it. So she goes away. She comes back a few hours later. The office assistant has printed 300 copies of the newsletter. You know where this is going. The picture on the front cover is reversed. And she goes into a rage and says, "Oh my gosh, what are we going to do? We can't run an organization like this. We're a bunch of amateurs. A bunch of amateurs. We think we're trying to run something, but we can't run it, and it never works out," and on and on and on and on and on, right? And she really finds this so convincing. Have you ever had a moment like this, where like one moment basically validates everything that you think about how something's insufficient? You know, all it takes is one moment. Oh my gosh, this place, oh, it's full of mess ups, and no one cares, and no one's paying attention, and no one's following the button, whatever, you know. One moment, that's all it takes. And she's feeling so enraged by this, she goes to Jishu, thinking, oh my gosh, she's gonna really get in this with me and validate. So she goes to Jishu, and she's like, "Look what this office assistant did, and I made sure she knew exactly how to do it, but look at this picture, it's reversed, and we have 300 copies, and what do? Are we good Buddhists? Are we gonna like throw it all out and do it all over again and waste trees?" Whatever, you know. She goes on and on and on, and Jishu's just kind of standing there, okay, you know, really, actually listening, but really just taking it in, not responding. And she waits until this woman runs out of steam, and there's a moment of pause. And Jishu just says, "My practice is learning to be with people." My practice is learning to be with people. That's all she said. My practice is learning to be with people. Like many of us, Jishu was a very private person. She was exceptionally bright, and before dedicating herself to spiritual practice, she was a scientist. She had a doctorate from Columbia University, and from what I heard, was often very quiet, and she loved her own space. And her dream originally was to be a hermit. But life had other plans for her, and now she's working in what at that time was a city that had the highest rate of homelessness in the country. And she gave her life to other people. And that became her practice, a practice of learning to be with people. And I think, and you can see what you think, I think that is one very powerful way to talk about what it means to age. Learning to be with people. Learning to be with people as they are, with us as we are, experiencing those changes together. In one instance, we're the caregiver, maybe, and at some point, we have a caregiver. Sometimes both at the same time, which is probably most often true. And one thing I appreciate that I'm noticing about aging is there isn't just one way to do it. There's something kind of special about being open to people, and we have this here, it's really wonderful. Open to people who are significantly older, people who are significantly younger, people who are approximately the same age as us, and our lives look so different from each other. even if they're actually around the same age. Have you noticed that? Most of those differences come down to a combination of circumstances that are unique to each person and the choices that each of us make in response to those circumstances. But there's endless varieties, and it's quite beautiful to notice. And churches like this are great for that kind of engagement, because we're not here to fix anyone. That's not our intention. It's not our mission. And even if it was, we don't have the capacity to do it. Our mission is wholeness. That's it. And the transformation some of us might experience is a reminder just of that, of our wholeness at every age, every circumstance. Whether we see ourselves as old or young, in our prime, or on the wrong side of 30. Regardless of how we see ourselves, wholeness, it's always here. It's always an option for us. We don't need to be our idea of what we think it means to age gracefully. I heard a beautiful story recently from someone whose father was dying. He had throat cancer, and he had a tracheotomy. And he was at the point in his journey where he decided he's going to refuse food. Okay? And so the nurse comes in and says, it might ease some of your discomfort to chew ice chips. And it won't get in the way of what you're trying to do. It's not going to prolong your journey more. And so he would chew on these ice chips. And he started to love it. And he became a bit of an ice junkie. He loved chewing these. And his father kind of sheepishly said to this person, his son, said, I can't believe I'm addicted to ice. And this person gave his father a wonderful gift. In fact, maybe the best gift anyone could ever give anyone. He just said, "You're dying. I don't think there's anything you can do to mess that up." And they both laughed, actually, about that. This idea of how we're going to do things. And how can you mess that up? How could you mess that up? I think in a place like this, we give each other, or I have to say, we give the opportunity for that kind of grace. You know what I mean? However you're living, however you're getting through your day, I'm sure there are better alternatives. I can look at my life and say, yeah, there are probably some better alternatives here. That's true for all of us. But fundamentally, there's a wholeness to you. Even if you're struggling. Even if you don't know what it means to live. Even if you don't know how to die. Even if you don't want to. There's a wholeness in that. There's a wholeness in that journey. Fundamentally, no different from any kind of wholeness in anyone else's journey. And it's true, we might get inspired to make different choices. Choices, how we approach situations. But our wholeness does not depend on making the right choice. Are you with me on that? It's always there, supporting our lives. The transformation that we try to cultivate in this church is allowing you to experience that for yourself. You don't need to rely on nice words from me or from someone else. you feel it for yourself. And that is possible. It's possible. And it can happen at any moment. It might happen today. It might be happening right now. And if you're an aging person thinking to yourself, I don't want my boat to sink, that's all grist for the mill. I don't think we can do it wrong. And sometimes doing it wrong can show us what is really right. Like messing up a picture on a newsletter. It can show us the true practice of our life. Not the practice of perfection, not the practice of success, not the practice of seamless competence in all situations. No. The practice of learning to be with other people, which ultimately is the practice of learning to live with ourselves in the situation that we're in. I've learned that aging doesn't necessarily lead to wisdom. You notice that? It's funny, right? It's funny in all these religious traditions, often the most wise people are not the elderly. It's the children. They're aging too, but they don't know it yet. So I've started to wonder, see what you think, if aging is not so much about accumulating wisdoms or lessons, but learning to let go of views and stories that hold us back from living as fully and vitally as we can. Maybe that's one of the greatest lessons. Letting go of an idea of who we are or how others should be so that we can finally be who we are. Realizing we can't mess it up, even if we've messed things up. There's a patient love in that. And I'm starting to think that's the most powerful and enduring kind of love. It's not love that's given like a carrot under certain conditions being just so. It's patient, ever present, so gentle, and all-encompassing. So gentle, we might not even notice it until we reach a certain point of vulnerability. And maybe we catch a glimpse of the grace of our life. A grace that has been our good friend at every age, except now we're at an age we can appreciate it. Please pray with me. Spirit of love, so grateful for these fantastic musicians. Just blown away. Michael Barron, Eric Ramos. Man, so much talent. So grateful for everyone involved in this service. Riz Raley, Tim Raridan, Andy Crabb, and more chalice lighters than I expected, but I'm going to get their names. Melissa Smith, Louisa Berger, Kathy Caja, and Sue Anzalotti. Man, oh man, what a service this has been. So grateful for all of the wisdom in this room, all the humor, all the joy, and all of life. Please help us to be there for each other in all seasons, especially if this is a difficult one. Please help us to be kind and patient with each other, to reach out and take an interest in each other. And please help us to do that even a little bit during coffee hour. It's a good start. All this we pray. Amen. Please rise and body your spirit for our closing hymn. We heard a beautiful instrumental version. And now we're going to add our voices. Amazing Grace in the gray hymnal, 205.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, now am found, was blind, but now I see. 'Twas grace that taught my heart to fear, and grace my fears relieved. How precious did that grace appear the hour I first believed. Through many dangers, toils, and snares, I have already come. 'Tis grace that brought me safe thus far, and grace will lead me home. When we've been there 10,000 years, bright shining as the sun, we've no less days to sing God's praise than when we'd first begun.
We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we keep in our hearts until we meet again.
I do see some new folks. Please join us for coffee downstairs. It's a beautiful room in Channing Hall. As you depart, please remember the one great fact. You are loved and never truly alone.